Morning, Ian.
Good morning. Shall I start my video, Helen? There you go.
You can. I just want to big you up a little bit first, though.
Oh,
Ian.
go for it. I love that. Yeah, go for it. I'll take that.
Because Ian's a very successful podcaster. You're a business coach. You've been a guest note speaker, and like I say, we're just privileged to have you here, and to thank you very much, and to make sure everyone takes advantage of all your expertise. But yeah, take it away, Ian, and hope everything goes well.
Thank you so much, Helen. But yeah, just to echo what you've just said there, please, everybody engage. We've got a chat facility. I want this to be very interactive. We're going to do this over 2 weeks, and I've created a 20-point launch strategy for you. So depending on how things go today, we might get through 10 points, we might get through 8, we might get through 12. So I really would love you guys to, morning Julie, there you go, the chat started already. Make sure you populate the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye on it. I'll try to spin lots of plates, and we'll have some fun as well, okay? So I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. Let me test this will work. Okay then, could somebody let me know if you could see those slides for me? That would be great. Hopefully you can see my slides there. Nothing yet? Okay, thanks, John. Not yet. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, how are we doing now? If I just bring the chat box up so I can see you all. Okay. I'm going to, okay, hopefully you can see that now. Can you, someone let me know if you can see that, please?
Yeah, everything's good, Ian.
Thanks very much. Cheers. I can't see the chat box if I'm sharing lots of different things. Okay then, so yes, as you can see, they're going to produce your own podcast, and I'm going to take you through the 20-point launch strategy. Okay then, so a little bit about myself, just to give you a little bit of context. I'm the host of a podcast called The Industry Angel. And it's a business podcast. It's a weekly show, and I interview business leaders, entrepreneurs, adventurers, anybody that's inspirational. I believe we've all got a story to tell. So no matter what discipline you're in, there's always something we can learn. And I guess it's a little bit self-indulgent for me as well, because I have so many people that I'm really interested in. One that springs to mind is a bodybuilder from the 1970s who's actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's training partner, and I was really interested in that particular time of the 90s, of the 70s, sorry. So I had Rick on, and I've had so many people that I've just fancied getting on. And because you have a podcast, you can then reach out to people and they'll come on your show. So you can never pick up the phone to someone like that, but if you say, I've got a podcast, would you mind jumping on? It happens. So it's wild what a podcast can do for you. And I'm going to take you through some of those stories and give you a bit of context of my journey as well. Okay, then here's some of the key takeaways that we'll be going through. Hardware options. This is a question I get asked all of the time, and hopefully you can hear me okay. And I'll share some of the hardware that I'm using right now with you. Budget and premium. So of course, you probably don't want to go all in right now. If you're a would-be podcaster, you might want to buy a kind of bit of a budget setup, and then you could go for a premium later on if it's for you. So we'll talk all about hardware. Software, I'm going to actually take you through some software editing tools and show you what it's like to edit. How to promote, of course. Okay, now we're a podcaster, we've got a show, you've created a great bit of content. If no one's listening, though, it might as well just be sitting on your laptop. So how can we promote it? How can we get it out there for the audience? Branding, of course, that's so important right now. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a branding exercise around content creation and how to engage the audience. So again, if you are creating a bit of content, you'll have a tribe, you'll have an audience that will be listening to you. So you need to keep them on the hook, if you like, keep them engaged with you. So first of all, for me, I would love to know, are you a podcaster? So I'm going to attempt this poll. So hopefully you can see that coming on your screen right now. So let me know if you're a podcaster, or if you're completely new to it. Thank you so much for your vote. See them coming in now. And just as you do that, I'm going to try to look at the chat facility because I really want to see you guys chatting as they come in. Okay, completely new to it. Had a dabble. There's 5 of you had a dabble. That's great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for your time there. I've managed to get the chat facility up as well, which is great. And I'm going to keep that going. And I'll be checking that out. So Tony, you produce pods for people looking to get best practice. Okay, good stuff. You could probably teach me a thing or two, Tony. Brenda listens to loads. Good stuff. Actually, Brenda, let me know who you listen to. Excellent. Okay, this is looking good then. So there's a lot of you completely new to it, and there's 5 of you had a dabble, and 1 started their own podcast. Good stuff. Do we need any more time for this, do you think? Come on, get voting if you can, because I can see there's more of you in the room than have voted. So hit your poll button and let me know. But it looks like the majority are completely new to it. That's great for me to understand how to pitch this. And it's good that there's few had a dabble. Okay, I'm going to end that. There's the results there. Hopefully you can see that. So the majority are completely new to it. That's great. Okay then, you stop sharing that. Isn't this tech all great now? We've been through lockdown, everyone's on Zoom, everyone's trying. But I tell you what it is, we're being a lot more patient with each other, aren't we? Because all this technology inevitably goes wrong. And I'll probably end up talking about that as well as we go on. So what I'd love to know as well is, what are you looking to get out of the next 2 sessions? You've got me for 2 hours today, for 2 hours next week. I can't second guess what you want to know. I probably do know because I get asked quite a lot of stuff. But to be honest, I really want you to just hit me with as many questions as you can. So let me know what you're looking to get out the next 2 sessions. If there's something I'm not going to cover, that's great. That gives me a week to then try to create some content. I think about it. I've got my little notepad here, and I can pick it up for you. Sarah's just shared her very own podcast, but it was a sharp learning curve. Yeah, it is, Sarah. And what I'm going to talk about is my learning curve as well over 5 years, because just like anything in life and in business, you pivot. See, you might go off in one direction, but inevitably you'll head on another. And I didn't know where this journey was going to take me, Sarah. And it's took me in some strange places, believe me. Veronica's looking to understand how podcasts can fit into my overall marketing strategy. Great stuff, Veronica. Yes, it can. It can fit into your digital marketing strategy. One thing I would say is, podcast isn't for everybody, but it could be for you. It could be a vlog that you might want to do. You could create a YouTube channel. You could create a blog. So if someone's reviewing your digital marketing strategy for you, just understand that what they think is right might not be right for you. And I'm going to talk about being authentic today. I'm going to talk about being you and creating content that you're comfortable with. Joe listens to a lot when juggling family life and business. Yes, chores and exercise, that's really good, Joe. We're going to come on to where people might listen, to your podcast and how they might use it, which is great. Sarah, all about content ideas. Good stuff. Thanks for that. Tips on cutting out the noise at the moment as everyone has taken to Facebook. Alistair, great point. I'm going to talk about that as well. So keep that coming in, and I'll try to spin a few plates and read them. Graham's looking to launch his podcast. Okay, Graham, we're going to talk about our 20-point launch strategy today. So I'm going to make sure that you launch in style. So let's kick on then. But as I say, keep populating that. Okay then, I was going to take you through my journey. And when I first started podcasting 5 years ago, I didn't think that I'd be doing half the things that has happened to me or I'll be doing now. And I just quickly threw this slide together, and let me just take you through it. The top left is a magazine called Podattainment, predominantly in the States. So I've been a guest writer in that. I've wrote a chapter on the book of podcasting. I've been on numerous shows, numerous seminars and keynote speaking, as Helen mentioned earlier. I'm an Amazon influencer apparently, so I've got my own shop with affiliate links so people can go and buy equipment and I get a little kickback of Amazon. I was put up forward for a European Influencer Award. You know, you can see there with Gary Vee and Tim Ferriss, so you know, lots of great people. And that's not me kind of blowing my own trumpet, that's just me giving you a bit of an understanding of where podcasting can take you and where the journey will go. Who knows? And that's the exciting part. That's the exciting bit about this, is love the journey, love the game. And we're going to talk a bit about that over the next couple of weeks. Okay, Brenda, I'd like to understand if I could link easily to a YouTube channel. Yes, you can. Great stuff. I'll add that to the list. We'll talk about that. Now, let me give you a bit of context then. Let me show you, I'm a proud dad, let me show you my 2 kids. So this is Luke, okay? I'm going to give you a bit of context about my podcast. So Luke loves Nike, as do I. And if there's any parents in the room, you might have shelled out £130 for those Nike 95s. And this is my daughter, Jessica. So Jessica's a dancer. And like many dancers, they love makeup. Now, Jess has enough makeup to decorate a big top full of clowns, but there's never enough for Jess. She always wants more. She's always looking for the next palette. Now, back to Nike. Now, Nike's been going 55 years, you know. As we know, they were founded in Oregon. And I'd be so bold as to say that everybody who's listening right now has something Nike in their wardrobe. And in terms of YouTube, we've just mentioned there, they have about 1 million subscribers to their YouTube channel. So lots of inspirational content that often evokes emotion. You know, the thing with Nike's strapline, which is about 30 years old, just do it. It encapsulates everybody, you know, no matter your age or gender or anything, your ability of exercise, just do it. And I love that. Now, going back to Jess watches a guy called James Charles, and some of you might know James. He's a bit of a YouTube sensation. He created a channel all about makeup reviews. Now, James is 21 years old. So remember, Nike, 55, great pedigree. James is 21. James has 20 million YouTube subscribers. Nike has 1 million. Now, I think this is a great example because James did this through creating killer content. So he didn't have those decades of brand awareness. He's just creating content. So this is why I use this example, is that you just have to start something and see where the journey will take you. You don't need those millions of pounds behind you or those decades. It's just start something and you'll never know how many subscribers you have. Now, going back to that point earlier we had, I can't remember who it was now, about digital marketing strategy. You're all marketers. If I had to say who's in marketing here, I would literally expect to see a sea of hands. I would hope so. Because we're all in marketing. If you've tried to get somebody to take action, you're in marketing. So if you've had to ask your partner to watch your son or daughter for a couple of hours this morning whilst you jump on this Zoom, you're marketing. You've tried to coerce somebody to do something. So we're all in marketing if you want someone to take action. And just as we mentioned earlier, podcasting or content creation could be, in my opinion, should be part of that strategy. Now, Alistair mentioned about cutting through the noise at the moment. Alistair, you are so right. And I use this example here. This is Wembley Stadium. Now, if I asked you, Alistair, I'll pick on you. If I asked you to walk into the middle of that stadium and everybody in the audience, in the seats there, shouted out their value proposition, we wouldn't be able to hear it. It's just a lot of noise. So as you say, how do we cut through that noise? How do you stand out in the crowd? Well, for me, it's all about creating killer content, okay? not similar content, not trying to replicate somebody, not trying to create something on LinkedIn article because everybody else is doing it, not trying to go live because everybody else is doing it, sitting in the car with these earbuds in, you know, wasting 4 or 5 hours of our time, minutes of our time, which you're never going to get back. What are we going to do? How are we going to stand out from the crowd? And that's what I want to talk about today.
Sorry to interrupt. We have one question from Julie. She's asking, would you be covering a subject in terms of choosing a name, in terms of branding? And if not, if you won't be covering this today, would you be covering it next week? Or do you have any advice on choosing the name that would probably, stand out from the crowd?
That's a great question. I love that. I've got a little slide on that, so I'll elaborate on that point when we get to it. So thanks for giving us a heads up, Audrey. That's great.
Okay, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of a rant here, and hopefully this rant will give you a bit of solace, because when you look at some of the big shows, I nearly had a big rant there, and I'll try to keep this cool. Okay, we are indie casters. We're solopreneurs. This is our side hustle, quite often a passion project. It's not monetized. And you look at some of the big shows that you see on the Apple Podcasts chart, for instance. And this is what they'll have behind them. They'll have producers and directors and guest bookers who get them onto other shows or reach out to people with a podcast and say, you know, can my podcaster come on your show, to try to leverage their audience. They'll have a marketing team, and as you can see, a huge studio. And we probably don't have that right now. So how can we compete? But don't worry about it, because only 1% of podcasts will actually reach 20,000 downloads. And only 5 to 8% of podcasts will reach 5,000 downloads. So there's lots of podcasts out there. And I get a little bit hung up when I see articles by magazines that say these are the top 10 podcasts out there right now. What they're doing is they're literally discounting 99% of podcasts, and they're just looking at the Apple Podcast charts. It's lazy journalism. There's so much great content out there. And I'm part of a very large international podcast community where we try to help each other out and share each other's stuff, because we don't have the back end of these large networks. And I could rant even further about the iTunes charts. It's hackable. You can pay to play. You could launch a podcast tomorrow and it could be #1 through a number of different avenues, which I might come on to later. I'll try and calm down for the moment though. So don't worry, there's enough for everybody. So back in 2015, I did quite a lot of research about podcasting. A lot of the research, a lot of the figures out there are American-based, because they've been into podcasts a lot longer than we have. And this bit of research here, you can see the impact from 2006 right up to 2017 in this case. And the top line is the percentage of Americans who've listened to a podcast ever. So you can see 40% of Americans have listened to a podcast. And the bottom line there is 24% of Americans listen to a podcast in the past month. So there's quite a good audience there. And you can see the impact that it's had. It's had a real renaissance. It's had a real surge over this last few years. And you can see what smartphones have done to the world of podcasting. I've got an iPhone. I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy. I use Apple Podcasts to listen to my podcasts. And you can see here, in the past 30 days, which device have you used to watch, listen, or download a podcast? So we've got computers, tablets, but you can see smartphone is well away, and it's had 157% increase since 2014. Obviously, we're now 2020, so that's going to be off the charts right now. So that's why podcasting's had such a surge. It's through the use of smartphones. Now I'm dying to say iPhone, aren't I? Because you can see here on the left-hand side, the percentage of operating systems on phones, 51% is Android and 42% is iOS. But what you can see on the right-hand side is that although there's only 42% of smartphone purchasers grab an iPhone, 54% are listening through iOS. So you can see Apple really do push podcasts quite a lot. So when I talk about charts going forward and how we're going to launch our podcast, Apple is really where it's at, the Apple podcasts. That's where I really wanted to get to when I started this. And I started this, back in 2015, and a bit like you guys right now, watched a lot of seminars, lots of courses, listened to lots of podcasts, made my own notes, look at the software that's out there. And this is my pad from back then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast track you through all of these notes, all of the experience, all of the pitfalls, and I'm hopefully going to get you to a point where you are ready to go. Okay, this is a bit of a silly slide, but what I'd like to show this is that it's up to you guys how the look and feel and how you want your podcast to be. For me, it's fun but professional. So I want to create really good content. I want to speak to some absolute rock stars. I want to share so much value with the audience. Give. I'm really passionate about sharing really good information and showcasing fantastic people. And when I say fantastic people, that's not just the people that we've heard of, famous people. There are some great rock stars, especially in our regions, who don't really shout above the parapet. So I love to persuade them to get on the show. And this is just me and Paul messing about, but it's all about having fun for me. Okay then, so back to 2015, I started from my dining room, that is my dining room table. And it's so easy to start. You could start with some headphones like this, to be honest. You don't need lots of posh equipment, but I'm going to take you through some of the equipment that I recommend. That microphone on the bottom is called an ATR 2100 in America, but in the UK, it's called a Samson Q2U. It's had so many reviews from podcasting magazines or things like blogs. People are right that, the top 5 microphones for podcasters right now. Samson's always in there because it just works. It has a really good sound. To be honest, at the moment, I'm using a Pro Rode. I don't know if you could see that at all. These are really good mics, but to be honest, the difference between that microphone and the Samson isn't that much. And that often when you review it, that's what people will say. The benefit of this mic is that it's very, very flexible. It's, let me see my next slide, see if I've got an example of what it is. Well, I'll come on to that actually. Let me leave that for the moment and I'll come back to that because I know that's going to be of interest to you. So I should come back with equipment, but basically I started with that mic plugged into my laptop and that's it, good to go. USB plugged in, I was recording. The other bits are there is a Zoom, that little brick. That's my portable recorder. I didn't have that initially, but when I go to conferences or seminars or I'm speaking and maybe I'm having a great conversation, I can pull it out of my bag. It has 2 microphones on the top and I can create content there and then. Oh, thanks, Petra. Can you actually put the microphone closer? Good stuff. Thanks so much. I've got a mixing desk here, Petra, okay? I can turn myself up or I can put the microphone closer. So thanks for your feedback. Okay. So then let's get to this 20-point launch strategy. What I want you to do is define what your show looks like. Beverly, I'm going to come onto that portable recorder. It's called a Zoom, but thanks for asking. Let me know if this sounds okay for you as well going forward. So then you might have seen Simon Sinek's golden circle. So what we know is what? So what we're going to do? We know how we're going to do it, but actually why? Why are we podcasting? What are we looking to get out of it? So I'm going to give you some homework and I'm going to ask you to grab your phones and I'm going to ask you to take a photograph of your screens when I get to the end. Fluffy big thing, Beverly, I call the dead cat. And we'll come on to the dead cat soon, thanks. So what is your show about then? What is the topic of your show? As you know, mine's a business podcast, but I still try to create some really inspirational content by interviewing people who might not be in the world of business. But I think there's always a story to share or to take away. So for instance, one of my friends, James, he climbed Everest, and you don't just shoot up the world's tallest mountain. It takes 2 months. You trek, you go to Lucknow Airport, you trek to base camp, you go to camp 1 to camp 2, back down, acclimatize, back up to camp 1 and back 2 again. That's a project. If you think about it, it's a project plan. You create a project. So you can always link this stuff back to business. So that's why I love inspiring people with business stories. But you might be into beekeeping, or tell me what you're interested in the chat. What is your passion? That could be your podcast. So why should we listen to you? Why are you credible? What have you done? What have you achieved? Have you been beekeeping? Why am I saying beekeeping? Well, have you been beekeeping for the last 6 years? You've got some real great knowledge. Have a good think about this and make some notes. I want you to write this down. If it's swirling around in your head, you're probably not thinking about it too much. Get this down on paper. Tell yourself why. What should we expect? So we're going to listen to your show. What's it going to be like? What should you expect to hear? Is it going to be a 20-minute show, a 15-minute show? Is it going to be an interview show? And I'll come on to that. So remember that picture. How do you stand out in the crowd? What makes you stand out? How are you unique? How are you doing things differently? We know it's a noisy place right now. We know there's lots of podcasts. There's lots of content. What are you going to do differently to stand out from the crowd? Again, make some notes. Have a little think about that. Who is your listener? So if there's any marketing fans in here right now, you might have known the term buying persona or a customer avatar, for instance. Have a think about who your listener is. For me, it's probably the entrepreneurs or business people or people with a side hustle, like a passion project, who might want to transition over into their own business. There might be an intrapreneur. What I mean by that is someone who has entrepreneurial qualities and tendencies, but they work for somebody in the business, and they might manage their own value proposition within that organization. So there might be 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. You know, I'm not really bothered about the age, because I believe you can always start a business no matter what age you are. But I also understand that in terms of what they're interested in, it's tips and tricks, it's stories. As I say, I think we all learn from stories. So my listeners are always interested in, like, what are your challenges? What mistakes did you make? Did you take investment? When did you take your last employee on? So have a think about your buying persona. What are they going through right now? What are they interested in? What are their pains? How long would they listen then? And where would they listen? So I think one of our friends said they listen when they're exercising or going through their day-to-day bits and pieces. I do the same, but mine is a commute. So in terms of how long they listen, generally commutes could be half an hour in this country, you know, or maybe not in this country, but in our regions in the north. If you're further afield, you might have a longer commute. I try to keep my shows about 30 minutes, sometimes 40, if we're really creating some good value. So have a little think about that. And where do they listen? I've had some really crazy people listening to me, and I had one the other day saying they listened to me in the bath, which is scary. But yeah, people will often kind of cycle or run with you in their ears, which is lovely because it's so intimate, isn't it? You share in a moment. Okay, then I went back to the types of show then. So there's lots of shows out there. This is a picture of me hosting a panel. So everybody had a mic, and it was great for the audience to watch. And I thought, why not capture this audio and create a podcast from it? I'm always thinking about how I can create more content, but I'm always trying to keep things different and shake things up. So if you do have an interview show, there's no reason why it couldn't be you one day doing a little rant or a little solo yourself about something you've seen, you know, a particular hot topic, something you're passionate about. You can shake it up, and that could be a 5 to 10 minute podcast. That's a little kind of bonus extra that you're throwing out there. It doesn't always have to be an interview show. It could be anything. In this instance, it was a panel. As I mentioned earlier on with my portable recorder, sometimes I'll grab it out my bag and I'll just capture a bit of audio with someone because it's been really interesting. I'll then throw it as a podcast. So we had some branding questions. I'm going to take you through Brandon. I think it was Julie or Trace mentioned show name. Okay then, so we really want to stand out in the crowd here. So my podcast is called The Industry Angel. And that was something, when I was making those notes, you remember that little slide I showed earlier on, I always envisaged the angel of the north here in Gateshead, kind of overlooking the city or the region and sharing information. And I think I just sketched a little set of headphones over the top of the angel. And I was just playing, and I thought that's quite nice actually, because you're sharing knowledge, but also angels often are referred to in business because you have angel investors. So I originally called it Industry Angel, but then I thought actually people are going to start searching. If I put business podcast in the title, hopefully that's what people will be searching for. So what we need to really think about is we need to think of this a bit like getting found in Google. You know, when you look at search engine optimization, SEO techniques. So think about that. So let me know in the chat if you've got some ideas of content, because that'll really help me put things into context for you, rather than saying beekeeping every time. So yeah, so think of something that's really stand out, but also what we need to understand is there a website out there right now with a domain available? So industryangel.com was available. So that then gave me a little bit of power then to think, yes, that is a good name for the podcast. There's a website available. But then is the social handle available? Now I'm a huge fan of Twitter. If anyone is on Twitter, please jump on it and let me know who you are. The Twitter handle was available, and that meant something. The Facebook handle was available. Great then. Now I'm starting to really think that Industry Angel could be a good title. Color scheme. Now the reason I'm talking about standing out there is because in the Apple Podcasts, it's a sea of artwork. And you can see there that those are the resolution that you need to have your artwork set at. You can Google that, you'll find it, don't worry about that. I wanted something that stood out because there's lots of pictures on the Apple charts, and quite often it's a picture of the host. So I thought I'd be a bit quirky with it, and I've changed my artwork since the last time I launched it. So don't worry about thinking that when you create artwork, it's there for life. It isn't. You can submit your new artwork to Apple Podcasts and so on whenever you like. And I'll show you how to do that later. John, thanks so much. Education podcast to explore the lives of teachers. Okay, John, that's what you're going to be starting to podcast in. Great stuff. So no doubt you've got a lot of knowledge in there that you want to get across. Alistair, I have two. The one I need to restart is helping individuals implement agile ways of working. Good stuff. Excellent. A completely new one is music gear, mainly for returning guitar players. Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing those. I can see straight away that that's your passion, Alistair. So you're obviously a musician, you're interested in guitar. You've got so much to share there. So you need to get this out into a podcast. If you don't, it's criminal. Share your knowledge. Okay then. So as you know, I'm going to take you through this 20-point launch strategy. So you can see I'm going through each point at a time. What we'll do is we will send you this, maybe we'll follow this up. We'll put this launch strategy down for you. Okay, then back to my dining room table then. And I had a few questions come through about large fluffy things. So let me take you through what I used. Okay then, so that setup was the Samson, if you remember. And the Samson is a budget microphone.
And you're right. So when you talk about the equipment, there is one request from Joe. Could you type the equipment names that you're using in the chat box, if that's okay with you? So people can check them out and probably even buy them, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, back to you now.
Yeah, thanks. So I've just typed that in the chat box. That's called the Samson Q2U. But actually, if you go to industryangel.com and you hit the About section, I've got a full page of the equipment that I use in there. Spoiler alert, they are affiliate links off to Amazon, but it'll give you a good idea of everything that I use, because that's a question that I was getting asked really frequently. lots of emails and tweets saying like, you know, what microphone do you use, or could you give me some advice on a particular bit of equipment. So I created a full page on there, so it's all on there for you. I'll just type this in. For you there. Okay then, so let me talk about this budget microphone here, this Samson Q2U. The beauty about this is you can see on the bottom there that it's got a USB cable coming out of it. That will plug straight into your laptop. So you can record instantly through your laptop, okay? You can see that's on a, thank you so much, Andreas. That is on a boom arm. So these boom arms that can move. So you can move it around, which is really nice. Or you could have that in front of you on a little tripod, that's fine. And you'll see what that bent over the top of the microphone is called a pop filter. A lot of you might know a pop filter for you musicians. That will take out all the plosives, those explosive noises that you hear, the p-p-p, that will help with that. Now this microphone is called a dynamic microphone. What I mean by that is a condenser microphone will hear, it's very sensitive, they're quite studio quality, and there's a lot of condenser microphones out there. I think a lot of some called the Blue Yetis or Blue Snowball you might have come across. Lots of podcasters use them. The reason I want to go for a dynamic microphone is condensers can pick up lots of stuff in the room. So for instance, an air conditioning fan that's whirring, it would pick it up. A dynamic one, as I think Petra mentioned earlier when she asked me to get closer to it, you literally have to get quite close to where it is to you. And I like that. And the Samson is a dynamic mic. Now the beauty about this is, hopefully this sounds okay for you. The beauty about this microphone is that it actually does both. It is a USB microphone, then also it can be plugged into a mixer. Now I'm not going to try and blow your mind here or get too technically, and believe me, I'm not the most technical. And one of our friends is a podcast producer, so he might tell us more. This Samson will also let you plug in an XLR cable into the bottom, which will then plug into a mixer. Now, why do we need a mixer? Why can't we plug this microphone into the laptop? Well, if you want two people, so you might have physically two people in the room with you, and you want to record some audio, you need two mics, obviously. Two mics with XLR cables in the bottom will plug into a mixer. Two mics USB into a laptop won't work because a laptop won't understand two microphones. So you need an interface between the two. And that little audio box there is called a PreSonus. I think they're about £100, something like that. I've only used it a couple of times, to be honest, and I'll tell you why. But you can see you can change the levels of the particular guest that you're interviewing. There's only a couple of dials there, so you won't get too confused by it. So that's why the Samson's really flexible, because it can either be USB into the laptop or plugged into a mixer. Now going back to the zoom, you can see on the bottom right, zooms are absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of the zoom, so let me talk through that. There it is there. Sorry, that was my building's fire alarm going off. So let me talk through a zoom for you. You can see on the top, it has two small microphones, and actually they rotate 90 degrees. So you can either hold it yourself to your mouth or hold it in front of you, or you can turn the microphones so you could hold it in front of you and the person in front of you, the microphone's directed at them. They're really, really good. And as I say, I've got that in my bag. It's probably maybe about the size of a remote control, you know, maybe twice the size, thickness of remote control. But so easy to just pull out, literally click that record button, and then you can you're creating content right there on the fly. And as I say, I do this quite often at conferences, especially if there's a great keynote speaker, and I might follow that particular person and think they've got some great content. I'll grab them before they go on and just say, you know, how's things going for you? And you mind if I just record this? Literally 5-10 minutes, you get some great value out of it. Now, this is a real versatile piece of kit, because not only is it portable in terms of being able to pop out and, you know, grab some audio using those mics on the top, you can plug 2 mics into the bottom of it. So you won't need that mixing box that I showed earlier. And that's why I only used it a couple of times, because once I bought the Zoom, I was taking this around and creating content in front of audiences. So I'd go live in front of an audience. All I would need is this small Zoom sitting on the floor with 2 cables plugged in the bottom and 2 of those Samsung microphones. That was it. I didn't need any posh mixing desks or any big microphones. You know, just literally these Samsungs were just doing it. And I used a boom arm, which was about 20 or 30 quid on Amazon, quite a cheap one. This is how I got started. So these boom arms I'm using today, these are Rode and quite nice. But you can grab a boom arm for, you know, like say 20 quid off eBay or Amazon, and you could pop your Samsung into the top. So Zooms are really, really good. That dead cat that I was talking about earlier on, the fluffy thing on the top, somebody asked, that just stops any wind. So I can pop that dead cat on top of the Zoom, and that would stop any of the wind blowing around, and it just makes that cover. As I say, any questions about this, just let me know. I'm trying not to be too technical, but to be honest, you don't need to be. These are dead simple.
Yeah, Ian, in terms of recording, we've got a question from Tony. He asks, do you have any good advice on how to record remotely due to the COVID at the moment? My clients usually record through the phone or using Zoom. So have you got any advice on this one?
Tony, let me know if you mean physically, actually being in the room with them. But if you do, this Zoom is perfect for that, because that could sit in the middle of the floor, and with an XLR cable, you can get XLR cables that are 1, 2, 5, 10 meters long. You could be on either side of the room chatting away, and that could be in the center of the room. What I like to do with this Zoom is I like to put that next to me on the floor. All right, okay, Tony, I'll come on to that. When I'm going live with this with a guest physically in the room, I like to put this on the floor, because you could see by this slide, you can see the left and the right. Those are your levels. So if someone's talking too loudly, I can turn their level down, or vice versa. If they're quiet, I can turn them up. So I always like to sit this on the desk and watch them, watch the levels so they don't peak out. Mm-hmm. So Tony, you mentioned different parts of the UK and around the world. So my podcast, Tony, was very much an interview show around the world, and I've got some ideas for you to do that. So I'll come on to that.
Right, and thank you. And we've got another one from Julie. Can you have a desktop stand for the Samsung microphone rather than the one that fits to the desk?
Yeah, so there's two things you can do. These boom arms that I'm using right now, these just screw into the side of a desk. Yeah. They're really, really easy to attach. Or the Samsung comes with a small tripod, like a plastic tripod that you can just clip, just stand, you know, like you have like when you've got your phone on one of those tripods. Yeah. You could pop it on that really easily.
Okay, yeah, excellent, wonderful, thank you. And back to you again.
Thanks, Andreas. Okay, then I'm going to get posh with you right now. I'm going to show you some of this premium stuff. So this is a Rodecaster Pro. These are quite new to the market, and Rode listen to podcasters, listen to their pains and what they would love to achieve from a product, and they've come up with this mixing desk, and it's fabulous. It's just a wonderful piece of kit, and that's how you're listening to me right now, because as you can see on the mixing desk, you've got 4 microphones that can plug into that. At the moment, I've got 2 plugged in. Yes, I've got 2. I'm going to take one of the levels down on this, see if this interferes at all. I didn't realize I had the second microphone plugged in. So I've got 4 mics in there right now. And obviously that means you could have this on the table and you could have 4 people sat around it, socially distanced, obviously. And you could have them each have a set of headphones if they'd like, so they can hear themselves back. And you can see there you can USB. So at the moment, I've got this USB into my laptop. There's a phone option there. You can see the little slider. If you slide that up, you could then, your phone will kick in through Bluetooth, and someone could ring me right now and I could have a conversation through the mixing desk and we'd all be able to hear it. So someone could dial in, a bit like a radio show when you hear people ring in. And it's really good. You can also have effects. So things like, I have bumper music, which we'll come on to shortly. But for instance, I've got music, if you can hear this. And you can also have effects. So you can put any little effects in there. Hopefully you could hear those coming through. So it's great. And those buttons, those colorful buttons, you can set up your own sounds on those. And it's a really, really good bit of kit. The reason it's good is because it does a lot of work on the fly. So there's 4 people plugged into this right now. It's listening. It's adjusting their voice all the time. You can set the levels to the microphone to say, oh, you know, that person has quite a soft voice. That person has quite a deep voice. And it'll do some normalization as it goes. And I'm going to come onto that term a little bit later on for you. So if you wanted to get posh, that's what you could go for. And as I say, these mics are a Rode mic. This is a Rode mic, and that's a Rodecaster. So I'm kind of all on brand. I've gone all Rode. But as I say, the sound quality is not that much more from the Samsung. So this little setup was the Samsung, a pop filter, some headphones, a boom arm, and a shock mount. Now a shock mount, you might see these little shock mounts. These cradle the microphone. I'll just show you that. These cradle the microphone. And basically what it's doing is, if anyone bangs the table, it just stops the mic wobbling and hearing the sound. It just cradles and keeps it in a nice little cradle to stop any bangs and knocks. You don't need one, but they are quite good in case anyone is banging around. I think you could get that set up for less than £150. I actually got a Samsung. I've got 3 Samsungs. I grabbed one on eBay and it was less than £50, and it came with headphones as well. Somebody had used it once and found out the podcast and wasn't for them, so it was great. Okay then, so that was the equipment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about software for the next 10 minutes or so, and we'll grab a 5-minute comfort break if that's okay. So at 11 o'clock, we'll take a little bit of a 5-minute break. Okay, then let me talk to you about software now. This is where I'm going to really try to break the internet. Never work with children, animals, or podcasters. Right. Let me see if I can. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to try to share an editing tool, okay? So if you just hold up, bear with me on the moment. Or Jace, you might be able to keep me right here.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Okay. Okay, let me share this. Now, hopefully you can see Audacity. Could you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let me bring up a file that I've recently been playing with. Okay then. So this, and let me bring up another one as well. Yeah, let me bring up this one. This is going to be an interesting one for you. Can you still see that okay?
Yep, still good.
Fantastic. Okay. So you can just see 2 lines on the top, yeah?
Yeah, we can do, yep.
Brilliant. Okay. Let me see if I can play this to you. Ooh, was that loud?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to hear that.
No problem at all. That's fine. As long as you can see it, that's okay. So I'm going to talk you through what this is. When you're recording, you'll need to record into something. And what you need to record into is a digital audio workstation. It's called a DAW. Now, when you plug your microphone in, obviously you can probably hear yourself through the headphones, but you need to click record somewhere, okay? And this is called Audacity. This is a free tool. It's used very widely, open source software, and it's absolutely fantastic for recording. Now let me see if I can record on the fly here. Can you see that blank screen? Andreas, does that look blank to you?
Well, I can still see the same two kind of streams of.
Right, okay, no, but right, that's good then. Okay, let me try to take you through a little bit of a practical here. So if I...
So could you move your mouse? It could be that your screen is frozen. I'm just want to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah, can you see that moving now? Can you see?
No, no.
Okay, no worries.
If you can reshare the screen, sometimes it freezes, to be honest. So if you can reshare it, I think that will help.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Andreas. I think now you'll be able to see.
Now it's all good. Yep. Now I can see the move. Yep.
Can you see that moving?
Yeah, I can see the red kind of
lines
moving. Yep.
Okay.
And is it recording your voice, I suppose?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just here a little bit echo back from me again. So there you go. This is recording my voice as we talk right now. So you're going to have that microphone plugged in, and this Audacity will help you record. So now we've got this little bit of narrative, a little bit of text, voice recording there. Audacity is fantastic. So I might think, for instance, I've said something I can just take out. So if you've got a clean show, okay, an Apple podcast, you might have it as clean, or you might have it as explicit, whatever you want. Quite a lot of my guests don't swear. I try not to do that. But sometimes if you've got a guest, they might drop the occasional F-bomb and you think, that's all right, it's not too bad. But somebody might be a bit of a sweary Mary. They might be constantly dropping it, and you might think, it's not for me. You can just take it out. So I've highlighted that bit of swearing, for instance. I can just use that snipping tool and take it out. This is really good for people who and ah a lot. So when you first launch your podcast, you probably get quite precious about editing it. And if you're quite nervous, you might do a lot of, I'm so sad now. I can look at a waveform and actually see ums and ahs. So I can actually see when someone's been and ahhing. I can also see when people are maybe smacking the lips and creating a bit of a mouth kind of noise, because it'll peak. Let me see if I can do that. You see little bits of peaks. Again, I can kind of grab that small peak and I can just take it out, or I can mute it. You can mute it as well. So Audacity is fantastic for doing bits and pieces like that. It's also interesting when you've got an interview show is, you probably heard on radio that the kind of having dead silence is unforgivable on radio. And you've probably heard it. You'll never hear dead silence. You'll never hear 1 or 2 or 3 seconds worth of total silence. I'm always mindful of that on a podcast. So what I tend to do, if I'm doing an interview show and I've asked the guest a question, now for instance, I'm talking right now, but if I stop and think, and then I start talking again, sometimes that guest might be talking for, maybe, they might be thinking for maybe 5 seconds or so. I don't want 5 seconds of dead audio. So I could maybe just take that 5 seconds out and shorten it. Now, what I see on some podcasts is what they'll do is they'll literally take all the time out. Now, that's not natural. Conversation does have a flow. And if I ask somebody, can you tell me, the biggest challenge you've faced in business? Oh, yes, Ian, it was such and such. They're not going to respond like that. They're going to say, yeah. And then they're going to talk. So try to keep things natural. Don't take out every bit of silence. But, if it's 5 seconds, I'll maybe just chop it down a little bit. Now, you can see on this waveform here, I'm trying not to be too technical with you, but to be honest, as I say, I'm not the most technical. On this bit of waveform here, you can see it's not very loud. And in Audacity, there's lots of different tools you can use. Quite often I use only 2. One of them is to compress the dynamic. And what that'll do, you'll see that popped a bit there. That'll listen to my voice and give it a bit more amplification. There's also another tool, which is great. Again, I can select that and I can use normalize. Normalize is fantastic when you've got two guests, because what it does is it looks at both guests' waveforms and tries to normalize it. And what that means is if I'm talking to Paul and he has a very loud voice and Ian has a quiet voice, you don't want to keep changing the volume on your car or on your headset when you're listening. So normalizing will bring the two speakers in line with each other. And you can see this first section here, it's almost got to the widest point. It will never do that. If you had the threshold right, it won't clip, so it won't distort. Now this all sounds a little bit maybe full on right now. It's so simple. And I will, in the break, put a little link to a YouTube video, which is a great tutorial by Buzzsprout on how to use Audacity. And believe you me, you will be able to use this, and you'll be, you know, making podcasts fantastically very quickly. Let me just share another screen with you. Okay, hopefully you can see this waveform right now. This, I'll just go in the chat box, I'll just check. Can you replay so we can see how it's changed? Ah, Joe, sorry about that. Let me have a look. See, I'll not do that at the moment, Joe, because it might break something I'm going to show you right now. Hope that's okay, but basically we just made it a bit louder. So this is two people speaking, but you can see at the end here, this is my bumper music. So front and back, I'll have a bit of a bumper music. So again, to make your show sound a bit more professional, you could have a little bit of an intro and an outro.
Sorry, Ian, can you move your mouse again? I think it has frozen again.
Oh yes, it's paused. Yeah, 2 seconds. Resume share. Is that okay now?
Yep, it's all good now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for Andreas. So you can see there at the end of the waveform, I've got an outro. So that's my outro music. Let me see if this will play. So that's my outro. What you can see there is I've faded it in and then faded it out. Again, dead simple.
Ian, we can't really hear that, from our kind of side. I think it's only you who can hear this because you've got your earphones in. So
that's no problem. You don't really need to hear it, but thanks for that, Andreas. Okay. So cheers now. So that's my little bit of music at the back there. And what I've done is I've just faded it in. So I've literally gone to effect and fade in. And you can see it's made it smaller. So it hasn't gone full on straight away. It's slowly faded in. And then at the end, I will just fade it out. Again, dead simple, really, really simple. So a bit of music at the front and the back. And for instance, you can also copy. So say, for instance, that was a great bit of conversation. I can paste that back in as well. I can paste that over here. So there's lots of bits and pieces you can do. But like I say, the majority for me is just taking any ums and ahs out like that and adding a bit of music backwards at the front and the back, and then making it sound a little bit better by using the compress and the normalize. I won't do that because it's quite a long bit of an interview. That's Audacity. That is so easy. So we've got Audacity. If you're on a Mac, there's something called GarageBand. There's also Adobe Audition and Farrar if you've got an iPad. But what I'll do is, again, I'll put those in the links. So don't let that worry you about editing. Lots of people outsource this because they worry that it's going to be too full on for them. But it's really doable. Honestly, it's really, really doable. Joe's saying I used Audacity when editing historical reviews. So much easier it is. Thanks so much for that. There's Andreas put GarageBand in the links there. And yeah, and I will put this little Buzzsprout YouTube video in. You can watch a YouTube video for 10 minutes and you'll be able to use Audacity. It's so, so simple. Okay, then let's have a break for 5 minutes. Is that okay, Andreas? Could you manage this for me?
Yeah, and we can do, just before we do take a break, do you mind answering some questions while we still have this all fresh information fresh in our heads, if that's okay?
Go for it.
Right, okay. So the first one from Tony, he's asking, what's the price of the road mix desk that you've mentioned before?
Tony likes flashy lights, doesn't he? It's about £500.
Ooh, okay, quite steep. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go into like professional podcasting, I think that's what you need to probably go for, I guess. Right, okay. Moving on to the next one from Veronica. Is Audacity a multi-purpose? Meaning, is it good for music as well as voice?
Yeah, it is. Like I say, if you watch that YouTube video, you'll see lots of different ways people that have used it. But yeah, you can tweak. There's so much in here. I know if you're still sharing, you can see all these different bits and pieces that some of them I've got no idea what they do. You can even, reverse text so it sounds a bit crazy. You can do the voice. You can do loads of bits and pieces. So yeah, you can use it for music as well.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. We've got another one from Julie. Where is a good place to get royalty-free music for intros and outros?
Julie, I second guessed your question and I will come on to that for you.
Right, okay.
Yes, I will talk about music shortly.
Mm-hmm. And we've got quite a few more, if that's okay.
Good, go for it.
We've got a question from Beverly. Besides deleting, can you use it to create snapshots where you showed us we can delete bits and bobs from the kind of audio line? Can you extract information and save it as a separate file? For example, if I want just a 5-second audio from the whole, snapshot, can I just save that bit?
Yeah, that's something I do quite a lot. So if you want to maybe promote your podcast, you might want to do a little teaser. So for instance, you could just literally Control-C, so copy. Mm-hmm. You could create a new, I don't know if you can see, if I go to this bit here, could you see that blank?
Yep, you can do.
And I'm just going to literally paste that in there. And then you could save that. So yeah, dead simple. And then, like you say, if you didn't want that particular section, I could just take it. I could just take it out. I could just remove it. Yeah, dead easy.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Wonderful. That looks pretty easy.
Yeah.
You're not a technical guy or a lady. That's quite simple.
Yeah. Let me show you one thing that people might be interested in. I get asked this quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So let me take you right the way through the start of this conversation. This chap was in America, and he had a lot of distortion on his microphone. So if you can see these little bits and pieces, could you see that? Can you see me highlighting this here?
Yep.
Yeah. So you can see these little small bits.
Yeah.
All the way. Now what I could do is I can mute those. Okay, quite easily. Actually, I'll just undo that because I've deleted it. I don't want to do that because you'll see that the conversation will jump. What I want to do is I want to mute those. So can you see that's just gone blank? I've muted his microphone right there.
Yeah.
Now, rather than do that, I could have asked Audacity to look at it. So what I can ask Audacity to do is I can highlight this bit of noise and I can say, I want to reduce that noise. So I'm going to show Audacity the problem. I'm going to say, get the noise profile. So now Audacity know about that. And I can highlight all him and I can say, okay, I want you to reduce his noise. And I can change these levels. I've got these set. What Audacity will do is it'll run away and it'll look at his levels. And anywhere where it sees a small little blip like that, it will remove it. And
lips touching or something else that he's not really talking, but the microphone picks it up.
It'll be tapping. He might have a set of headphones like this with a little mic on the side. Yeah. He might be moving. His chin might be moving along next to it or something. So it'll go and look and take them all out. Now it might not take them all out. Okay, so you can still see there's some left.
But it removed quite a bit.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would just manually kind of take them out. Manually take them out like that. I don't really use that very well. I prefer to take them out manually, because when you've got your interview, what you'll do is you'll listen back. So I might have remotely talked to Ron from the States, and then once I've put the phone down to him, if you like, I'll go back and I'll edit it. So I'll put my music in, I'll make it louder and amplify it and stuff. When I'm going through and listening to Ron, I'm playing this all the way through, and I'll just, as I go, I can see those little bits. I'll know that's not a word by looking at it. So I'll just take them out all the way through. Yeah. And a rule of thumb is, if it's like maybe an hour's worth of recording, it's probably 3 times more to edit. So give yourself three hours from an hour's worth of recording. But once you get your little hotkeys sorted out, for instance, I was quickly doing that, because I've set Alt and W to be mute. So rather than look for it over here on the tab or on the drop downs, you can set little hotkeys, so you can really make this really seamless.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. Right, okay. We've got another one from Brenda. This Audacity software, got us a few questions.
Yeah, cool. It's good.
Will Audacity work on a Mac, or will it have to be GarageBand?
Brenda, I use Windows, and I'm pretty sure you have to use GarageBand. You might be able to use Audacity, but GarageBand is very simple, a bit like this. And again, there'll be little tutorials on YouTube, but it's really similar. Oh, there you go. John said he uses Audacity on a Mac. Fantastic. Thanks for that, John.
Wonderful. Right. Okay. That's it from people in terms of questions, I guess. So we can take a short break. Do you say 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah, let's take 10 minutes. This got on from Beverly here. Can we use Audacity to edit Zoom recordings? I will pick up on that. I'll make a note of that, Beverly. So when I come back from the break, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Right. Okay. So
should we take 8 minutes and get back for 20 past 11?
Yeah, we can do 20 past 11. Okay,
Great
guys.
stuff.
20 past 11. We'll be back. So be back 1 or 2 minutes before that, if that's okay with you. And yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and I'll get my slides set back up.
And welcome back, everybody, from the break. Ian will soon resume, and we'll continue with the webinar. So Ian, please turn your camera on and the microphone whenever you're ready, and we're good to go ahead.
Is my screen sharing, Rory?
It's not. We can see you, but we can't really see your screen at the moment. So if you want to redo it again, or reshare it.
Okay, be good then?
Yep, we can see it now. Yep, all good. Yeah, back to Audacity.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that was Audacity. I hope I didn't blow anyone's mind there. Let me get the chat box up as well. So I just keep that on the right-hand side if anyone's got something. Okay then, so let's move on then. Let's talk about remote recordings. I think it may have been Tony mentioned this. Now, mine was an interview show back in 2015, and lots has changed since then. I used to use Skype. Now, if anyone uses Skype, they'll know there's a few problems with that voice over IP method. It can sound a bit like quite robotic sometimes. The person can drop out. And as I was recording that with a little bit of software that sat over the top called Pamela, as it was recording, that's what would have to go into the interview. And if it kept happening over and over again, it was so frustrating if I'd waited for, months sometimes to get a really good guest on. And then Skype was, not performing very well. And the thing was, what Skype kept doing was they kept updating that version. And every time they updated Skype, Pamela wouldn't work. So sometimes I get on live with somebody who's a real rock star and I'd be like, right, okay, I'm good to go. Nothing would happen. So I found something called Zencastr, and that's what you can see right now. Zencastr is basically, it's based on a web browser. So I would create a link, zencastr.com/Andreas, and I'd send that to the guest, and we'd both appear online in this web browser. And you could literally click start recording. They would pick a bit like Zoom, you know, pick your microphone kind of thing. And I could see it recording there and then on screen. And you could even do things like add your intros and outros, any little, little sounds that you wanted to have. And the good thing about this was that it saved it live. It saved it on their desktop. So it was locally recording. So whilst I was talking to somebody over the other side of the pond, for instance, it would be saving on their laptop as they were talking, and the same with mine. And at the end of the conversation, it would upload it to the cloud, and then I can grab it in my leisure. It's just sitting in Zencastr's cloud. This was great. And what I would do with that is I would download it as a WAV, a WAV file. Now, WAV files are what we want because they are good quality. They're a lot bigger than an MP3, but they're good quality. So I download the WAV file, pop it into Audacity, and then I could begin to edit. I could begin to add my intros. I could begin to add my bumper music, take out the ums and the ahs, normalize it, bit of compression, export it as an MP3 file, job done. So Zencastr is really, really good. But of course, a lot's changed since then. You know, we've got Zoom now, and Zoom have recently brought in, you know, you can download the audio and stuff like that. So I haven't used Zencastr for a while, because what I've been doing is I've been going live with guests via social media and then downloading the audio file later on. So we'll come back to that maybe next week. I'm going to talk about going live and live streaming and why that's good. So that was a bit of a whistle stop. So if you're doing a remote interview across the pond, you could use zencastr.com, or you could use something like Zoom and download the file. Okay, if there's any questions on that, please again, let me know. I know I'm skirting over things, so I don't want to get too deep though. It is what it is. It's just very simple tool, Zencastr. Okay then, so going back to our launch strategy then. We've mastered the software, because I know you picked that up so well, didn't you? I popped the link as well in the chat box for a YouTube channel tutorial on editing. So we've mastered the software. Now what we need is, we need an introduction. Now, at the start of my podcast, there's an introduction. I got someone to record it for me, but initially when I first launched the podcast, I recorded it. I popped my USB microphone into Audacity and just recorded what the show was about. This is good because people want to know what they're expecting from the next 30 minutes. So if you can nail that in 30 seconds, just by saying, you know, who we are, you know, what, when, when, how, who, you know, what the show is about, what it's for, what you're going to learn, and maybe look at that buying persona. What would your listener really want to get out of that show? Have a little play with this, maybe for, like I say, 20 or 30 seconds. Create an introduction. You can do it, or you can reach out to someone maybe on Fiverr.com. And if you know what Fiverr, Fiverr.com, people will do things literally for $5, $10, $30, and so on. I got a chap to record mine for me, and I give him the script. He recorded it. He had a studio quality equipment, and he recorded it for me and then sent me the file back. I asked him to tweak a few bits and pieces, and now I've got a nice intro. Again, similarly, where I'll come on to music, but I did that on Fiverr. Thanks, Andreas. Fiverr.com. So I think introductions work really well, rather than just going straight into your podcast. Shape what the listener's going to hear. Okay, then bumper music. I think somebody mentioned before about bumper music. So there's something called Pond 5, and you can see on the slide there, if you look at the bottom in the black, you can see all the different genres of music. I think I wanted something a bit like hip-hoppy, a bit funky. I've had something a bit rocky in the past. It really has to match your show. I think one of our friends mentioned that their podcast was going to be about education, maybe for teachers. So would a reggae kind of music fit that? Probably not. One of our friends said they were going to do something about getting back into guitars. Maybe you'd want a bit of a acoustic guitar playing. So Pond 5 was great. I think you can buy them maybe $10, $15, $20, depends on the quality or the length of the music. But what I did was I reached out again on Fiverr. I went to fiverr.com. I saw that was somebody who was a music producer and I wanted something bespoke. And what I said is I love hip hop, and I sent them some music that I liked. I said, can you do me something like this? And they come back and we tweaked it a little bit. So then I had my bumper music, an intro and an outro, bumper either side. What I do with the introduction is I overlay that over the introduction, the intro music. So using Audacity, I lowered the level of the music and put the introduction over the top. So as the person speaking, there's music in the background, and it just gives it a little nice professional touch. If you reach out on Fiverr, maybe you might get them to do both for you. You might say, could you do me an introduction with some overlay music? There's lots of different people out there. Have a little play with it. Or grab it yourself on something like Pond 5 and play. Okay, if there's any questions on that, again, just let me know. Okay then, hosting. So we've got our podcast. Okay, we've recorded in Audacity. We've edited. We've put a bit of bumper music, top and bottom. We've got that file as an MP3. I don't export out of Audacity as an MP3. I like to export it as a WAV file, that really high quality file. And then I go into iTunes and I just pop the WAV file into iTunes and I just literally right click and say convert to MP3. I like to do that because I know Apple Podcasts have their own preference in terms of how an MP3 looks, you know, compression and size. So I like to just do it in iTunes, but it's a dead simple process. It's just a drag and a drop. So we've got our MP3 file. The reason it's MP3 is because if it was still a WAV, you would blow up people's phones, because it's a WAV is probably about 3 or 4 times more memory size than an MP3. So probably going to talk about 30 meg for a half an hour interview. Whereas obviously if it was a WAV, it would be like nearly 100 meg. So that's not really what you want people downloading. So you want an MP3. That's the format of choice. Now that MP3 has to be hosted somewhere. Okay. And let me just show you something called Libsyn. Now Libsyn stands for Liberated Syndication. Julie, if you have an Android, don't worry about converting it on your phone. You do it on your laptop. So if you have iTunes on your laptop, literally drag that WAV file in to your iTunes on the laptop and just click right click convert. That was something that was a bit of a standard 4 or 5 years ago, and I've always just kept it working, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. You can export out of Audacity as an MP3, but I know it works using iTunes, so that's my choice. Yes, Libsyn. Okay, so we've got that MP3 file. Where are we going to put it? How are we going to get it into the ears of our listeners? So Libsyn, as I say, libsyn.com stands for Liberated Syndication. They've been in the podcasting world for so long now. Libsyn's fantastic, and it becomes quite addictive when you release your podcast, because you want to know who's listened and where from. So you can see here on this graph, these are across the different weeks and months. You can see how many people download the MP3 file, your podcast. And on the top there, you can see what method. So is it an Android? Is it Apple? Have they listened through Twitter or on the website? Where did they live? So for me, it's 50-50 from US to Europe, but they become so addictive. As I say, you can even see whereabouts in the world. So you can see the key on the bottom right there, from light to heavy. You can see the majority of my listeners are in the UK and the US. But then sometimes you can hover over this map and you can see like who is listening in Ghana, Who's listening in Kazakhstan? It's just wild when you think about all these people that are listening to you. And it can be a bit of a lonely journey sometimes being a podcaster, because you might sit here in a room like this and put out a podcast, but then it's in the ears of somebody in Peru and you think, oh, like, who are these people? I guess it's a bit like writing a book. Once you put a book out there, you don't know who's reading it. So I love to receive feedback from people. So I always ask for feedback. Now with Libsyn, I think it's something like $20 a month, and it'll give you about, I think it's 400 meg. I can just check. Yeah, I get 400 megabytes per month. And that gives me about 3 or 4 hours of audio, maybe 6 or 7 episodes. That's enough. You can go on another scale if you wish, but $20 a month, it's fine. And what that does is that gives you an RSS feed. That gives you somewhere where the podcast is hosted. And I will go on to this in a second if that doesn't sound... Yes, I'll come back to that RSS feed in a second, okay? So this is what Libsyn looks like when you get on there. When you want to upload your MP3, your podcast episode, you get this screen. Now, what I've got there on that last slide was I've got Think SEO, okay? Thinking about getting found on Google? Well, we've got something called ID3 tags, and that's just a little bit of metadata that sits on the file. So when you're an Apple Podcast and you're searching, this episode, for instance, is how to get featured on podcasts. That might be a common search term. So hopefully someone will look on the Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or whatever, maybe ask Alexa. I best not say that in case it starts off. But they might ask how to get featured on podcasts. Hopefully this podcast will come in, because I've really put a lot of time into the search engine optimization. And this is a 20-point method. I'm going to talk about this next week, actually. This method. What you can see on here is you can see that going through the different tabs and fields, you give it a title, you give it a subtitle, you put a description in there, that becomes your show notes. So when people are listening to your podcast, they scroll down, they see all your notes. Category, well, you can have bonus, you can have your own categories. So I've got social media, marketing, sales, live, if I'm going live, and I'll tag it with a category. On the right-hand side here, Apple has its own way of presenting podcasts. So the Apple podcast title, you'll notice, just says bonus, how to get featured. It doesn't say title 141. Reason being is, as you can see, there's a field later on saying episode number 141. Now, Apple started penalizing people who were saying 141 bonus because there's already a field number in there. So they're a little bit finicky, Apple. They want you to do things correctly. So I'd actually had to go and update all my my titles and remove the numbering out of them all. Libsyn's great. It did that in a one shot for me. So the numbering system is key. A tip for this is don't have your numbering system episode number 1. Okay, you don't have to have episode or EP in front of it. You can just have the number. Don't have the number 1, because the way it's stored is 1 will be next to 11, 2 will be next to 22. So what we want is 001, 002, okay? Because you're going to be doing 999 episodes of your epic podcast, aren't you? So that's the numbering system you want. You can see there they've got a rating. So if it is explicit, if there's some swear words in there, pop it in. What you don't is somebody complain to Apple that there's a number of F-bombs happening and it's down as clean. So tell the truth. Quite often I'll pop an explicit episode in if I've been interviewing somebody, and it's mad that if it's explicit, people like to listen to it. I don't know. And then pop your author name in as well. So that's all done from Libsyn. Okay, it's a fantastic tool. You can add your artwork in as well. So if you see the left-hand side there, I'm on details tab at the moment. You've got the next tab along, which is artwork. Remember when I said, don't worry about your artwork. If you want to change it later, you can. Every time you release an episode, you could have a different piece of artwork. I keep it standard, but I also put the episode on YouTube. You could have a different thumbnail for YouTube channels if you wanted to. and I will come on to YouTube in a second. You can schedule this. So if you're doing some batch producing, so say for instance, you recorded 5 episodes that day, which is great from a productivity point of view, you could schedule them to go out on a weekly basis, or you can just click publish now. So quite often I'll schedule mine. So I get 400 meg a month. Maybe that's 6 episodes. I can edit 6 MP3 files. I can do all the show notes around it all, and then I can schedule them to go out on a weekly basis. That might take me 2 days to do that, but at least it's done. And like anything in life, if you're doing it repetitively over and over, you get quite swift in doing it. You don't have to relearn the process. What I would say about podcasting is you're going to have to give yourself a day, okay? This is not something that will just take a few hours. This whole process will take a day. From interviewing somebody or recording it yourself, to editing it, to yourself typing up the show notes, to popping it onto Libsyn, to then doing your social media and your promotion, you're talking about a day. So there's a term called pod fade, and the average number of podcast episodes is 7, because people think it's going to be easy, but actually after 7 episodes, they get sick of it and they just fade away. So there's lots of podcasts that have been started, but not many of them get to episode, 100, for instance. So, have a think about that. Have you got the time available to do that? John, you mentioned SoundCloud there. Yeah, lots of people are using SoundCloud and Blueberry, I think. I've never used them. I've used Libsyn. It's a real industry standard. It's what a lot of the main podcasters use. As I say, I've been using this for 5 years now. It does what it says on the tin. It's $20. If it isn't broke, don't fix it for me. It works well. I know some people just literally record on their iPhones. There's an app. I've got it on my phone, actually. I will tell you what it is. It's called Voice Recorder 7. And it's a great little tool if you're out and about. I use that Zoom. Sometimes people might just use the iPhone and record. And, you can record, you can tell it what you want, like a WAV or an MP3. Some people literally record to that and upload it on the fly to their web host. I like to edit properly. I like to put the bumper music on. I like to make sure the show notes are done. I'm not a control freak. Well, I am actually, but I like to do it all nicely. So I don't really tend to do things on mobile and push stuff up to SoundCloud quick. Okay, then. So the next bit we've got is we've recorded our episode. We've edited it. It's all nice. We've got our music. We've popped it onto SoundCloud. It's been scheduled. But how do we get it to the various platforms? So we need to submit it to directories. Now, Libsyn will do this for you automatically. All you need to do is add a destination. You can see there at the top, I've got Google Play set up. I've got Libsyn. That's my RSS feed. That's the bit of address. That's where this podcast is hosted. I just tell all those different platforms that address. So for Spotify, it's got it already in there as a standard on Libsyn. You go into Spotify, click edit, and give it that address, industryangel.libsyn.com. Spotify will then pull that MP3 episode straight into Spotify. Similarly, on you've got Google Play, you've got iHeartRadio, we've got Apple, we've got YouTube. So with Apple, you do need to tell them you have a podcast. You do need to submit a podcast to their directory. That might take a couple of days to get authorized. Again, I would jump on YouTube for that, and probably there'll be a little 5-minute tutorial on how to submit a podcast. They'll just ask you some, really bog standard questions. And like I say, maybe that might take a couple of days, a week. Over the pandemic, they came back and said things might take a week to get submitted. But Libsyn will do all the other platforms for you. You can see I've got on the bottom YouTube. Now, why would we put a podcast on YouTube, you may ask? Now, I toyed with this because obviously YouTube's video and obviously a podcast is sound. what I do is I submit it to YouTube, and on the artwork section, I'll just put a thumbnail. So somebody can go onto YouTube. The thumbnail will stay static, but the sound will play. I believe you have to be everywhere because you can't tell people where to be. So for instance, if you're an Apple only, somebody might say, well, I've got an Android, so I can't listen to your show. I believe you have to be everywhere. So there was no hardship in pushing to YouTube because it's literally just populating that address once, and it does it automatically for me. I don't get many views through YouTube. I actually had a meeting this week with my colleague about pulling it from YouTube because we just get literally 2 or 3 listens per episode, and it might make it look like it's not a very good podcast if not many people listen to it. But I have had a couple of people come back to me and say, I listen to your podcast on YouTube, so it's a bit of a quandary. So I'm not too sure what to do about it, but nothing's spoiling at the moment. It's just sitting there. So I think the majority of people now, though, are using Spotify, Apple, and then if they have an Android phone, they're using something like a podcast player, Podknife, for instance, one of these generic podcast players. So if there's any questions about that, let me know. I know I've kind of whistled across it, but it's hard because I've been using this for 5 years. So you just get such used to it and you get a process that it just becomes cookie cutter. You know, it's dead easy to use.
Hey, and yeah, so you touched all these channels that you can put your content on, but we've got a question from John. He says that he's heard about SoundCloud. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I just touched upon that, Audrey. I just mentioned SoundCloud there, and another one, Blueberry. As I say, Libsyn is a real industry standard. It just gives you so much functionality, and it does all the hard work for you. So I've never personally used SoundCloud. $20 a month for me is a decent investment. I'm fine with that, and it does what it says in the tin. So I've stayed with Libsyn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't really comment too much about SoundCloud.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. Okay, back to you now.
Yeah, so we've got for the last 15 minutes or so, we've nicely, as if I've planned this, look, we're actually on the 10 points of our 20-point strategy. And we'll be doing the next 10 next week, so you're going to have to come back. So the next bit is get a website. Now, you don't need to have Libsyn. You could have that MP3 file stored on your website, and you could point people to industryangel.com and they could listen through there if I just embedded the MP3. But I don't want, as soon as that's launched, for thousands of people to hit the website because it'll take it down. And you want to have that longevity in mind. You might think, actually, at the moment, I might only have 10 or 20 subscribers, but you won't in a few years' time. So get a website. It gives you credibility as well. It gives them somewhere to go. So let me show you my podcast website. It's industryangel.com. And you can see across the top, it's very simple. It just has a homepage, about, which is a little bit about me, why I started the podcast, what you're going to expect from listening to it. And then on the podcast page, every time I have a guest, I do a little album cover. And I use Canva for this, dead simple. And every guest also gets their own page, okay? So you can click through one of the album covers. So for instance, if I wanted to see Barney Waters there, episode 170, I could click through and this becomes Barney's page. What you can do on there is you can put all the show notes. So all the show notes that you put in Libsyn that go onto Apple and Spotify and so on, take the same text, pop it into your web page. Every guest gets a web page, so industryangel.com/EP170. So nice and easy link for people. And what you can do there is you can put all your show notes. Again, this is great for an SEO point of view. Okay, so think about Google as well. So going back to that last episode that I showed you how to get featured on podcast, if somebody Googled that, hopefully industryangel.com would pop up in the Google ranking search results and they'd hit the website. They hit the website and then, oh my God, there's another 180 episodes to listen to. Great, I'm going to listen to these. Okay, I like what I hear. I'm going to subscribe to it. So I also have nice, easy click share buttons on that. So you'll see share the podcast. So if somebody hits this page, they can say, all right, okay, I'm going to click that out and put it on Twitter. What else Libsyn gives you is a little embed tool, and you can embed a lovely player into your web page. Now, I haven't got one on this one because when I recorded this with Barney, I actually recorded it live through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter using something called StreamYard. Now, what StreamYard will let you do is it'll simultaneously let you stream to a number of different channels. And at the end of it, you can download the audio. And that's what I did in this instance. So this landed on my YouTube channel as well. So I thought what I'll do is I'll embed the YouTube player into this page so people can actually watch me and Barney speak through playing that bottom bit, or they could play underneath that. I actually have the Libsyn player. It gives you a nice little player, which is a bit of code, and it works really, really well. That piece of code I then send off to the guest, and they might put that on their blog page, on their website. You can see again, I've got the links at the top available on iTunes and Stitcher, that sort of stuff. So again, hopefully they'll link off and they'll subscribe. So that was the first 10 points of the launch strategy. I'm going to keep the next 10 for next week. So is there anything we've gone through there that you could drop me a quick question on our last few minutes together? I'm mindful that I've kind of whistled through some bits. So please let me know if there's anything you want me to go over. I really do think a website is a good idea though. It gives people a base, it gives people somewhere, it gives you somewhere to point them at. I often have live events, and so I can put a bit of news on there in the blog. It can show pictures. So obviously on the audio, you can't really see the person who I'm speaking with. Quite often guests will say to me, I jumped through to industryangel.com just to see what that person looked like. So it's a great place to push people. And what else about a podcast? Again, the website, great for SEO, great base for people to come to. And then should you want to sell anything, it's a place. And I will come back to monetization next time. But if I can just touch upon it quickly, if you see the top there, I've got consultancy. So you could click that. And this is about my company now. My company is called Farrar North. It's a sales and marketing company. So essentially, I'm a business coach. I help people grow their businesses. So if people like me, this know, like, and trust factor we all hear about. This is what a podcast will do for you. It's very, very intimate. People will subscribe to you every week. They feel like they know you. They know my kids are called Jess and Luke. They know where I live. They know where I work. It's amazing when you go into conferences or networking events. People actually talk to you like they know you. It's a very intimate thing, podcast. And so what you might find is people will want to engage with you or your business. So I've got a link there through to consultancy so people can employ me to work with them. So, you can push or sell or show what you do outside of your podcast in somewhere like a website. So that's why I always like to tell people to grab a website. Tony, thanks so much for your kind words. John, again, thank you so much. I'm glad you've took a lot from it. Beverly, will you be getting a copy? Well, I think it is getting recorded. Or Jace, could you jump in that?
Yeah, I can just confirm this. Yeah, the session has been recorded and it will be sent to all of you in the follow-up email after the session ends. So you will all have a copy of it.
Thanks so much. So until we join each other next week, what I'd love you to do is go back to that little bit of the slides, and maybe I could whistle backwards to it. Mm-hmm. Sorry for all the flashing, but maybe let's
step in a bit. Just before all of you go, I just want to let you know that we will be having our last webinar this week on Friday, and it will be on 5 practical and free top tools for social media. And if your business needs some advice on social media, that's the webinar for you to go. And then we will have 3 webinars next week. It's a bit of a busy week for us. On Monday, we'll have how to build a high converting digital sales funnel part 3 with Dylan Layton. So if you have attended his previous 2 webinars, this one is not to miss, as it will be the last one, and it will come with some really useful stuff. Then we'll have a webinar with Ian on Wednesday. It will be how to produce your own podcast part 2. So if you enjoyed today's podcast and if you want a little bit more, then obviously that webinar is for you to attend. And the last webinar next week will be on Friday, not the last webinar, but just the last webinar for the week. And it will be on CRM, the link between marketing and sales. You can basically register for all of those on our website, and you will be sent a follow-up email link with these as well. So don't worry if you don't know where to look for them. So yeah, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And now back to you, Ian.
Thanks, Andres, and thanks so much for the kind comments, Graham, Brenda, Jane. I'm really glad the pace was okay. I was really mindful not to try to structure this in a way where the pace wasn't too quick. So going back to the homework then, if you are looking to launch your own podcast, then great. I do encourage you. It's so much fun. You will love it. It will give you so much enjoyment and passion. In the next week, I will be telling you all about how to make it absolutely pop, okay? How to brand it, how to get it out there on social, tips and tricks on how to engage with people, maybe how to interview people, and how to launch your podcast so it could hit the charts, okay? So I'm going to take you right the way through that. Here's your homework, okay? Remember, I wanted you to think about your why. Why do you want your podcast? What do you want people to get out of it? So that's what I'd like you to think about. Veronica, part 2 will be repeated or recording available. Yes, I would believe the recording. Is that right, Andres? Record again?
In terms when you can't attend and you know that you won't be able to attend, if you just register for that webinar that you want to attend, and even if you don't attend, you will be sent a follow-up email with the recording, regardless if you attended or not. So if you know you won't be able to attend, just register for it. And then obviously after the session, once we edit the video, etc., it will be sent to you anyway. So yeah, that's the way to go. That's the way to approach it, really.
Good stuff. Excellent. So if there's anything in the meantime, you grab me on Twitter at Ian_Farrar. Reach out, drop me some questions. If you've liked today, send me anything you want and I'll try and cover it next time. But thanks so much for your kind words. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to part 2 next week, where you'll get the secret sauce, all the magic.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ian. And yeah, guys, don't forget, next week, Wednesday, same time, same place, 10 a.m. You can watch us on the part 2. And we hope to see you there. Thank you for being here today, and have a good day. And goodbye, everyone.